Perfect. So we are live on YouTube. So like I said earlier, so we've curated a lot of talks and events, presentations, exhibitions, meetups, book shows, festivals, all that at Thalam. So today we have Sabir. Well, Sabir is a very good friend. Most of you know him as a photographer, as a black and white man, right? I mean, though if you look at the design that we created, it's like bang on BW. So he started a group called Bang BW. So I caught the cue from there. So Sabir's interest in photography was inspired by his father's work almost three decades ago. So he loved to capture architecture, nature, people in the realistic moment, the life, what to say, their moods, right? And predominantly shoots in film and black and white, right? He has his own studio where he develops, scan, and print black and white images in a very traditional way, and I got my one of my films after a really long time. I printed one set of prints. Amazing, I would say. So you have to just print it to feel it, right? So he also conducts workshops, teaches to students, and exhibited across the globe in various galleries, international, and published in various magazines and newspapers in India and also across the globe. Right? Over to you, Sabir. So you have 45 to 50 minutes, and wherever you want to just say have a break, you can ask questions, or if you want to have something conversation, we can have more conversation oriented if you are interested in that, and then we'll have 15-20 minutes of Q&A.
Sure. Okay. So thank you, PV, for the very nice introduction about me. And I have known PV for many years now, since at least 2004, and we've worked together on many shoots. We've done a lot of work together. We've even exhibited our work together, and I hold him very dear. He's always enthusiastic. Very, very difficult to match his enthusiasm, I tell you. He's so enthusiastic about photography and getting people together and keeping in touch. So that's a beautiful quality that I admire about PV. So so thanks, PV, for inviting me to this Thalam talk. I hope that I can speak and give valuable inputs to everybody who's joining us. And I would like this to be an interactive session as much as possible. So feel free to ask me questions if you wish. If you would like to interrupt me and ask me a question about that particular discussion we're having, please go right ahead and ask me. And of course, at the end of the session, we will also have a question answer session. So you could also keep your questions for later if you wish. Um, Starting off, so welcome everybody, and nice of you to take off time and join in this presentation. This is mostly about my photography journey that I have done over the past maybe 15 years or so, and what I've learned, I'd be happy to share with you, and also some of my work that I've done and some of my future work that I'm planning. So photography for me, uh, though I did start shooting from 96, I used to shoot with a film auto DSLR, SLR, and it used to be mainly family pictures, pictures of friends, and general shots. So they were not really anything that I would, hold a candle to. Of course, I have tons of negatives that I've shot during that time. Those negatives are still with me, and they're mostly in color. Then in 2004, kind of a life-changing event happened where I shifted jobs, and I wanted to take some time off. So what better opportunity than this for me to pick up photography again and explore the medium. And luckily, I got in touch with a lot of friends who later became very, very close friends of mine, and we are still in touch, and we still meet and shoot together. So we used to meet in a place called, Mr. Anand Sharan had his own studio, and he was an ex advertising person, and he was a creative director of RK Swami BBDO. So a group of about 20, 25 photographers used to meet in a studio and conduct workshops, conduct discussions, share work, understand each other's thoughts, go out for shoots, and generally have a very good time. And many thanks to Mr. Sharan, who used to be kind enough to allow the use of his studio to meet. So we used to have rounds of tea and coffee, a whole lot of things, and a lot of discussions, very importantly. These discussions were so involving that we thought, why don't we have regular competitions and we have regular displays. So at that time, nobody was shooting digital, and most people were shooting film, color and black and white. So we had a couple of studios where I used to go and print and then submit the images for review and for judging. So, and of course, when we printed, we didn't have Photoshop and none of these things. So the pictures that we used to take used to be absolutely raw, I would say. None of us were, formally taught photography. Most of us learned from books. We learned by speaking to each other. We learned by calling mentors, such as T.N. Perumal, who's late T.N. Perumal now, who was an excellent guru to us. We learned a lot about photography, especially black and white, how to develop, how to print, how to judge negatives, and doing it the old traditional way. And his experience and knowledge was so huge and immense that all of us who worked and studied and learned under him picked up a lot of very good inputs on photography. I'm sure some of us are here and we will still remember those sessions. Then coming to shoots, we used to go regularly and shoot on the streets mostly, and sometimes we used to go out of station, but that was very less. But most of the time, we used to shoot in the city, go to markets, go and shoot in the streets, uh, do some portraiture work, and so on. So that journey stayed with me, and the learning stayed with me. And all of us, and some, of course, moved away or stopped photography or reduced their photography. But most people from that group, I remember, are still actively photographing. Either they have left their day jobs, or we even had a doctor in our midst who quit his profession and became a full-time photographer. So that was Vivek, of course. So a lot of you would remember him. And of course, Kishore is also there. He's also a doctor, but he also moved out of that, and he's now a photographer and a full-time family man. So and so that was essentially our journey. So I will now share my screen and present my a small presentation that I made. Most of this work that I am putting together is purely from my own interest and what my thoughts are about photography. So I hope everyone can see the screen. So, I mean, for me, photography is a story. Some may disagree, some may agree, but generally, according to what I strongly believe, any picture that you take tells a story, and that story, or the way you are putting it across, or taking pictures reflects your own mindset, reflects your own thought, reflects your own views on the scene in front of you. So let's say if I have 10 people shooting the same scene, they will each shoot the same scene in a different way. The picture will never be the same. I mean, if you compare all the 10 pictures that all the 10 photographers have shot, you will find that the picture is completely different from each other. So that uniqueness is what makes photography very, very interesting. You can't have a single formula for everything. Ultimately, uh, it's what is in your mind that you are putting across, and the time that you trip the shutter is your time, your moment. So what are the key aspects in um, you know in picture making or photography or image making, as you may call it? So for me, I've just broken it down to five important elements, which primarily for me, the first thing is the aesthetics. It could be a still life, a landscape, a portrait, um, or an architecture work. It could be a street shot, anything. It could be any of these things. But the most important aspect for me is are the aesthetics of the image, the balance, the composition, um, elements in the frame that come together or go apart or tell a story. These are essentially what makes an image appealing to me. These things, I mean, when you look at aesthetics, you have many rules, like rules of the third, and you have compositions, asymmetry, symmetry, lines, leading lines, so many things, color, use of color or lack of it. So um, it's good to know these rules, because they help you to understand the composition or the framing. But it's always good to break these rules once in a while. Imagine if you're shooting the same rule day in day out, your images will start to look they're almost the same. So there is nothing to distinguish one image from the other. Most of them will follow the same pattern. You'll have, let's say, an eye on the uh, at a key point in the frame, and things like that. But then everything will be like that. So there's no real uniqueness which is coming out. The second part, which I feel, is the emotion in the image, which a lot of photographers automatically capture, and it's instinctive sometimes. So the right emotion which comes out, a feeling of awness, a feeling of beauty, or maybe sadness, or it could be a war picture where you have destruction and things where they shake you to the core. So some could be very graphic, but then it does evoke an emotion in an individual. Third aspect is the timelines. So I think timing plays a very, very critical role in picture taking. So when you um, choose a certain moment in time to click the shutter, that's your way of capturing the moment or freezing the frame, so to speak. But then with modern digital cameras and motor drives and all these things, you can shoot as many pictures as you want, and continuously shoot images. But that's an individual's choice, of course. Second is the another aspect is the objectivity part of it. So when you look at uh, the image, um, and try to do some analysis, or when you are actually taking a picture, it's very important for the photographer to have a very, very objective viewpoint. And a lot of professional photographers achieve that, especially photographers who are in conflict zones and places where their life is at stake. So though they would definitely like to be a part of the event that is happening in front of them, and may would want to also help and change the course of the event by contributing, but their role, they know that their role is to record that moment, and that recording that moment is what their job is. So that becomes a important aspect for them. And of course the narrative, how you build that story and how you picturize it. So moving forward, um, anybody has any questions, please go ahead. And if you wish to clarify some points or you know put across your ideas.
Sabir, maybe I'll request them to type the questions in the chat box. If there's anything,
Sure.
then we can move on. Otherwise, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So let me what I've done is I've curated some of my work, previous work, together into various topics or projects. So some of these topics are very common. Certain topics are very new, and I've been working on them for quite some time. So it's a mix of different things. So the first thing that everybody loves to do is travel, and traveling in India, overseas, wherever. So I've put together a collage of images that is about travel, or it's about photography in different places. Essentially, what I'm looking at here is images that are impactful, aesthetic, look um, look and portray a sort of a feeling of timelessness, or a feeling of movement. So, for example, this image, which you see on the top right, is I'm not sure everybody will understand this, because this is not the Taj Mahal. This is actually the Bibi Ka Maqbara in Aurangabad. It looks similar to the Taj, but it's a replica of the Taj, which was built much later on. And so so this image I was shooting, I just shot it by chance because I was walking past the monument, and the sun was setting, and I was just about packing up to go home, and I saw this light, the sun setting behind the monument, and this light coming. So I shot this on Fuji Velvia 100, and it was just a spur of the moment shot. So I had very little time to meet up, but I did manage to make a good exposure here. I wanted the monument in the background in a silhouette form and get the colors of the setting sun. For example, this image of the train moving away is at a train station in Bangalore. It's a rural train station. Of course, now it's been taken over by many corporates. So this part of the town is not rural anymore. But then at that time, it was pretty rural. And this train was moving off, the thick smoke belching out from the diesel engine. That made the picture for me. So I shot this with a 24 mm lens, and of course, I think there's a double image, but that's one image after the other. So this was shot with a 24 mm. I had a lot of foreground, so there was some amount of cropping. The picture of the Charminar that you see was shot at a very, very unique vantage point. Took a lot of time to convince the people over there that we wanted to, take a picture from that location. I won't, of course, tell you where it is. It was very tough to get there. So this exposure was again on film, and this was on Fuji Provia. So this was a 8-second exposure shot. I used a tilt and shift lens to correct the perspectives and get the verticals in a proper order. Otherwise, I was not getting the entire monument in the frame. So uh, the lens was kindly loaned by a friend of mine who was also shooting with me. It was on a manual camera, a Canon FD. I still have that camera here. So this is my first camera that I picked up. I still have it with me. It's a very simple camera. It does not have any uh, automatic metering or anything. Everything is manual. The aperture, the shutter speed, ISO, everything is manual. You just click, you just wind and shoot. So, and it's got a simple 50 lens. After that, I added a lot of additional lenses to this camera, and made this a whole big collection. But then I realized that I have those lenses I was not using. um, that brings me to a point where I generally talk to a lot of photographers who are collecting equipment, and focusing more on the on the equipment rather than the art of image making or the art of photography. So of course, when everybody starts off, there are various stages. First, you start off with collecting equipment, and then you realize that you don't use half the things, and then you let them go. And then you focus on the camera or lenses and focal lengths that you are more comfortable with, or you like shooting, and that fit more with your personality. So that is something that was my learning experience, and that's how I stopped using or buying a lot of equipment. I used to buy a lot of equipment one after the other. Then that gave me a lot of peace of mind, so to speak, and that gave me some amount of creative impetus to go after creative things. So what I noticed was, if you limit yourself um, to the very basics of equipment, you don't have auto everything with you, and your mind actually then starts to think about the exposure, the picture, the light. You tend to judge your light better. You are able to judge your exposures without looking at the meter. So you come to a point where you start uh, learning more before you take the shot rather than after you take the shot. So that's the key aspect that I found in my learning, is that if you learn before the shot, if you think um, quite a bit about what you're shooting, your images and your hit ratio of your images turn out to be much much better, versus a single shot approach versus a machine gun approach. That's the difference. But then each place has its own. Like, for example, in sport photography, you may want to shoot a lot of frames because you would like to capture the moment, and you would like to capture all the action that the sportsman is the sports person is doing. So well, that's one part of it. So now this image that you see on the bottom right was at a resort I was staying in Coorg, and the sun was just coming up. It was about 6:30 in the morning, and the sun just came up from a faraway hill just behind that, and this light was just superb. And luckily, I had the camera right in my hand, and that's when I took this picture. So this picture is again on a transparency film. That's Fuji Provia, and Provia turned out to be a very favorite film of mine for color. So I used to do most of my work in Provia. I've shot on Velvia as well, but then Velvia, I especially Velvia 50 and Velvia 100, had very super saturated images. They used to give me very super saturated images. They used to look beautiful for landscapes, but definitely not for portraiture or for people photography. So Provia was much more, I would say, versatile, and I got a lot of good images through Provia. Moving on, I'll go to the next place, travel again, and this time uh, a group of us, six of us, all friends, we came together in 2000, 9 or 2008, and then we decided to shoot the entire state of Karnataka, and we were planning to publish a book, but the primary objective was to travel the whole length and breadth of the state and shoot images of the entire state and collate a set of images together. That was a beautiful, event for all of us. We still remember and we still enjoy the time that we spent, shooting and capturing various aspects and facets of the state. So right from culture to cuisine to attire, history, and wildlife, everything we were able to capture, and we uh, finally curated a set of images, and we did a exhibition in 2014 called Pratibimba. These are some of my images. I'm not showing all the images, but these are some of my images that I shot. So at that time, digital cameras had just come out, and there were some very good digital cameras available, like Canon 350D and Nikon D200 and D300. So most of my team members were shooting digital, and they bought new cameras for this project, and they invested quite a lot of equipment money in purchasing those equipment. I made do with the film cameras I had, and I purely shot on film for the entire project. All these pictures that you see are actually from different parts of the state. These are some of my selected images, some of my favorite images, which I put together. One image, of course, over here is belongs to my uncle. That's not mine, but we anyway included it because it represented uh, the church in Mysore. So of course, this picture also is an early morning shot from Coorg, same time that I shot the rocking chair. This was also a dewdrop falling from the coffee berries, and it created a very interesting image. So I shot this with a macro lens on a Canon F1 with a manual lens and manual focus camera. This image over here is from the market. We used to visit a lot of markets and capture moments in the market, and those were some very memorable times. This image, of course, was from a second floor of a building, and the hustle and bustle down on the ground with fresh produce coming in and being distributed to dealers and sellers. So those are some. On the top left, you see an image where this is Shravan Belgola in. So this is the foot of the statue, and the pujari was early morning ritual of washing and doing the abhishek. So he was doing that, and this was the time when I actually got the right timing with him throwing the water and the water splattering on the toe and creating a splash. So uh, this was actually just image that I shot because I just saw him, and it was a split second shot. There was absolutely no time for me to do anything else except compose and shoot. So, and then after that, this shot went away because he picked up the bucket and moved off. So there was no chance. So it was a very interesting shot for me. Okay, so these are just some of the collection of images from my travel series. Of course, I love traveling, and with the new COVID situation in hand, everybody is severely restricted, and there's no travel happening anywhere, which is very very frustrating and boring. But then we got to live with that, and hopefully we hope that the Almighty makes this turn around for all of us, and we are able to travel and be free again. So let's go to the next. Uh, this is a social project that I did with a couple of friends of mine at a remote village in Bangalore, just very close to Bangalore, just about 50 kilometers from Bangalore, a place called Tumkur, and a small town or a small village in Tumkur, where children, uh, we went and uh, did a story on rural education and healthcare for children. So these are some of the images from that project. Of course, the children were informed that we were coming, so they dressed in their finery with some of the best clothes and bright faces, and it was so beautiful to see them. And we of course had a lovely time shooting pictures of these children. So I just collected a few, not too many. We did a lot of work there, but I just brought some representative images from that. Okay, so another project that I'm a long term project that I'm working on, this is called the Livelihood project. Essentially, this means that people who are earning their living, but they are working on streets or public places, they don't have a shop of their own, or they don't have their own business establishment. Each morning they come to their designated spot. They've been doing that for 25, 30 years, and they've been coming to that spot, setting up their shop and selling their wares, or trading, or providing services. So this is a constant project that I'm doing. I keep an eye out for um, situations and opportunities where I can take pictures of people, and I also try to talk to them and understand, what they're doing, and why they are. For example, this image that you see in the middle is a picture of the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter and the granddaughter. So it's a single family, and they have been in that spot for about 25 years or so. Their entire family has spent their time trading in bananas, and that is their profession. But sadly, this particular location is now no longer active because the entire area has been demolished, and a new complex has come in its place. So they also lost their uh, livelihood, and they moved off, God knows where, because when I went the next time to speak to them or give them the picture, I could not locate them, and a lot of people told me that they have returned to their village because they found that uh, they could not sustain a living over there. So these are some of the pitfalls, or you know downfalls of um, people who are actually trying to make a living, but having a lot of challenging situations. Lady over here, you see on the left side, top left, is sewing gunny bags, and that's her work from morning to evening. She turns up each morning, and these gunny bags are from the market. She has to stitch them, mend them, and make them ready for produce, or whatever work is required to be done. Lady over here taking a break from her banana selling, of course, and drinking coffee. And this was again a spur of the moment shot. This is the only shot I got of her with this, pose. So I found this very appealing and I took a picture. Person on the bottom left, Irshad Pasha, he is a locksmith, and he has been working in the same location. He is still working there, of course. He still has his shop, and he repairs. Of course, he's put on some weight and got married and has now children, and a whole lot of things have changed for him. But then his working spot still remains the same, and he continues to do the same thing. That is, he's a locksmith, and he takes care of people who come and get their locks fixed, padlocks, hand locks, whatever. So, so this is him resting between his jobs. I have another picture of him working on lock, but I thought this was giving him some time of leisure, and I took this picture on a Yashica Mat 124G. Sorry, not G. That was LM. That was my father's camera, which I still have with me, and I shot this on T-Max 100 film, and of course, uh, lighting and everything was quite nice. So I had sufficient time to choose my exposure and choose the moment of this picture. Person you see over here on the top right, Mayur will of course remember this, is these gentlemen and ladies are essentially from the WPO, that is World Presidents Organization. So they visited India and Bangalore, and there were a group of about 30 or 40 people, and we split. Basically, Mayur was the team leader in this, and he split the teams into five each and assigned one photographer to each one of the teams, and then our responsibility was essentially to take them around and take pictures. So while they were shooting a very unique shot of um, the snake charmer, I thought, let me go and take a picture on the other side. So I quickly moved to the other side and took this picture. Of course, Sugandhi Gadadhar, she is also among the participants here today. So she recently pinged me and said that, actually this is now a banned profession. So one shouldn't be putting pictures of these things. But I thought I'll put it here anyway. Sorry, Sugandhi. I thought I'll anyway put this over here because it represented an art, a dying art, certainly. Okay, moving on. Any questions? Please feel free to ask me.
Sabir,
I'm
there is one question
okay.
from Saurav.
Okay.
I'm going to unmute Saurav. He can ask the question specific to this segment itself. Yeah, he can ask. Saurav, you there?
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Hello,
Yeah.
sir.
Hey, hi, Saurabh. How are you?
Good, sir. Good. Sir, I just had a very interesting question in here. So, since you shoot primarily films, majorly films, and that involves streets and people. So, how much percentage would you rate? How much of them are pre-visualized versus how much are in the moment?
I would say 90 to 95% of pictures are in the moment,
Okay.
because the street is such a dynamic location that there is no way you can actually judge or time certain things. Of course, you can be placed in the right spot and
Right.
pre-visualize that scene and wait for somebody to come into the frame and do your bidding, kind of, without you being staging it. So that is something that I refrain from, is staging images. I prefer the images to be formed as they are, as life unfolds. So most of these images are 95% of these images are spontaneous.
Okay.
Pre-visualization helps if I want, if I'm looking for a certain story, or if I would like to build a certain image. So then I do a pre-visualization.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Yep.
Okay, you're welcome.
So happy
So
to note, even Sugandhi just mentioning about it, creating awareness about this is very important, and the profession is banned. The kind of losing the jobs.
Right.
Very interesting point to note.
So, since Saurav asked the question, we've jumped to the next point, that is street photography and life as it unfolds. So, all these are spontaneous shots. I've only picked a very few images because most of my work is street, and very difficult to put all my images over here. But I just thought I'll put some images which I would like to tell some stories here, for example. So this girl on the left hand side, top left, is Nitika, if I'm not mistaken, and she's a writer. She writes and authors books, and she writes generally, and she's a very happy person. She was sitting over there on the steps of Blossom bookstore and typing out her work. So I shot 3 4 images without her being aware of it, because I was shooting with the Leica, and Leica, as you know, is a very very silent camera. You don't hear the shutters at all. For example, if I shoot and click the shutter here, you can hardly hear it 5 feet away. So if you take a picture using this camera, you never hear the shutter. So people are not aware that you have taken the picture. It really helps in candid photography, and I use this quite a lot in my daily work. I always carry this camera with me. It's always with me, either in my car or in my bike, or if I'm going out somewhere, I carry this with me most of the time. It's always loaded with ISO 400 film, because that's a very versatile film for me. Either Ilford or Tri-X or Delta 400, sometimes T-Max 400. But generally, if I'm doing street photography, I shoot with 400 ISO film. I don't push most of the film. I shoot at 400 box speed. Sometimes I shoot at 320 if I want more detail in the shadows. So I shoot at 320 sometimes, but most of the times I shoot uh, at 400. And I develop it also in different chemicals. Like for example, my favorite chemistry for developing Ilford is HP5 is HC110. It gives very good tones. It's very smooth. Grains are very very well in control. Compare that with Rodinol, which is a very high acutance developer. So Rodinol tends to give you a lot of grain, but HC110 tends to give you very smooth images, and it gives a lot of scope later in digital processing, or even in when you're going to do print the image in an enlarger. So that time it gives you a lot of room to play in terms of tones, contrast. If you want to change a certain look of the image, you can do that with a fast fill like 400 HP5 or Tri-X. So like that is one. This shot on the top right was at Avenue Road, and here there was a lot of action happening. There were a few photographers. These are not known to me, but they are, they were shooting together, and people in the background who are just entering and exiting a restaurant. So this was too much of action for me to miss. So I thought I need to take this shot, and so I took this picture. It was very nice, and of course one thing I do make sure is when I do any compositions, the framing camera is absolutely horizontal most of the time. It's very rare that so one should always be familiar with your equipment, and so that you're able to lift it up and shoot it as quickly as possible with the minimum of fuss and get the shot that you want. Same case with this guy walking these dogs. uh, I was standing and I took a couple of pictures, but I was not very happy with the framing. So that's when these two dogs moved diametrically opposite each other, and they kind of fell into a frame that I wanted. So I just dropped to my knee and I took this picture. There was, you see another shadow on the right. That's another friend of mine who was shooting at the same time, and he was standing and taking a picture. But this gave me an opportunity to just drop and take a picture, and that, I think, I got a very nice picture with the guy looking into the sun, him holding the leash taut so that his muscles are flexed in his forearm. You can see that, and the dogs themselves are active. Though they are friendly, but they are very active. So that made the shot for me. Plus, I also got a few landmarks in the background which showed where this image is from. Thing in the bottom is I was waiting for this person. I was sitting next to him for about close to 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. And he was like casing the joint or casing the road, looking for people. And when I was actually waiting for a particular look from him before I actually tripped the shutter. So I was pre-focused. Now, sort of, this is an example of where I actually pre-visualized the shot. And what I did here was wait for him to give that look. So when he did is when I actually lifted the camera and shot, because I was already focused. My frame was already ready. I knew what I was going to capture and what I was going to include in the frame and what I was going to exclude. Of course, this was a 50 and I was very close to him. So I got that shot. I really liked it because I was able to capture, his look, kind of. Same goes with this image over here. This is a very, very early image. This I probably shot in 2006. And this is behind Commercial Street, a place called Ibrahim Sayed Street and Swami Budliya Street. So this is the corner of that junction. And there are lots of shoe sellers, clothes sellers over there in that area, the market. And this girl was completely bored while the other lady was haggling for a slipper with the shopkeeper, and the shopkeeper was not budging an inch. So uh, so I mean, this was too good a shot for me to resist, and so I took that shot. So I managed to make eye contact with the girl as well, and that was quite interesting. So of course she didn't say anything, but I just smiled and tilted my head and moved off. So hopefully I didn't get any brickbats there. Okay, now guy on the bottom left is on MG Road, and he's selling peanuts, of course. But the way his cap angle was got me interested. So this was again a moving shot. While I was walking, I just lifted the camera and I shot this picture. So there was very little time for me. And of course, I normally, what I do is when I walk, I always look at the distance scale over here in the camera, and I always make sure that I have an approximate 15 to 20 feet pre-focused range always. So if I need, if some subject is closer, I can always bump it down, or if the subject is far away, I can always make those small tiny corrections, but the camera is ready to shoot. So it's always normally either f5.6 or f8. So you generally get good depth of field and you don't lose your focus. These are friends of mine, Arvind in the middle and Raj on the right, and of course a coconut seller. So we were at a shoot in a remote location, and we just stopped because we were thirsty. So we stopped for so I mean, this was again all of them in one direction, both of them drinking coconut water, and the other guy taking care of making the coconut for me. So that's the coconut for me. So I thought, before I drink, let me shoot first. So let's shoot before we talk. So that was the kind of idea over here. And yeah, this guy was sitting on the Vespa. This Vespa had just come out. Interesting thing was I was shooting film, and this was color film at that, and this was also on the Leica. I just waited for him because he was kind of checking his mobile, and the moment he lifted his head to look at the street is when I took this picture. So over to
Uh,
some
Sabir,
industrial work. Yeah,
Mayur had a question.
sure.
So you want to take the question now or later?
No, no, we can take it now.
Okay.
Hey, Sabir, one question. So, how does one procure films? Are they easily available? Because since you develop your own films, how easy is it to
Yeah,
source films?
film is available now. Film is also making a resurgence. So a lot of film stock is available. The most commonly used brands and which give very good consistent work and results are Ilford, Kodak, of course, Fuji, which is now stopped production, but you do get old stocks. And then there are some old camera filmmakers which have restarted their production also, like Ferrania, Orvo. So Orvo film is always available in tins, which is in 100 feet, 400 feet, or 1000 feet film, because actually it's a motion picture film. So motion picture film can be used in a bulk loader and converted to 35 mm film cassettes, which we normally do. It works out very economical, and the film is excellent. You can, it's quite, it has very good latitude, and you get very good blacks in Orvo film. So I love Orvo film. That's one of the film that I shoot with. So yes, film is available. Chemistry for developing film is also available, because um, Ilford has a good supply of chemistry, film, paper, and all photographic materials. But you also get raw chemistry, so you can prepare your own developer and fixer in your own home. It's not difficult to do. It's very easy. It's consistent, so you can always ensure that you have the always fresh chemicals. And another thing is it's also very economical if you mix your own chemistry. So I would suggest anybody who's shooting film regularly to use chemistry prepared by themselves, or you can use commercial chemistry as well. That's not a problem.
Just a follow-up question to that. So, if someone who's trying to get into film now, today, what would be a good place to start?
Okay, so uh, good place to start, of course, would be to first get a film camera if you don't have one. Uh, a simple film camera works perfectly, which has manual controls if you would like to use manual controls. But if you have a legacy system such as Canon or Nikon, then you also have some legacy lenses with you. So you could look at a body which accepts these lenses. So for example, Canon, you have EF series. So you have the Canon US 1V, or you have the cheaper versions also, like Canon 500, older film cameras. Those are available at very, very low prices. 3,000, 5,000 rupees. You will get a camera with a lens. But if you already have lenses, you can use, the digital lenses on your film camera. So let's say this is my digital body, and that's my 5D. So if I want to just swap lenses between these two cameras, it's easy for me because it's the same mount, and it's easy to do. Nikon users also will have the same advantage. So if people have a legacy system, you can use that. If you want to start afresh and slow down and shoot on a manual film camera, you can pick up a Nikon FM10 or a Pentax K1000, Pentax ME Super, Canon AE1 program. Any of these cameras work very well, and they are available with a range of lenses. So you can look at 50 mm or 35 if you want a slightly wider lens. But generally primes are available at very, very low prices. They're extremely sharp. They give you beautiful contrast and lovely results. So that's a good way to start, I think.
Thanks, Sabir.
Sure, you're welcome.
There's one more question from Prachi. Prachi, you may want to ask. Please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so my question is usually when you go out for street photography, there are a lot of people who are not really comfortable with you trying to shoot them. So how do you do you talk to them, or how do you go about getting a good picture?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question. It's a very tough question also, because generally what happens is people are very wary of photographers taking their picture. So if it is inevitable, if the person catches you taking a picture, I generally shoot and then ask for forgiveness, because I don't want to lose the moment. So I shoot first, and if the person has a disapproving expression, I always either say sorry or say that I will delete this image. If I'm shooting film,
Okay.
I make sure that I send him a copy, or him or her, a picture, a copy of that picture. So that is something uh, that you could do. If you have an option to talk to them, generally when you talk to them, then you get pictures that are slightly posed and
Yeah,
not very spontaneous or not very natural looking.
yeah.
So getting a good, I am just reading your question as well. So yeah, getting a good street picture is, you have to be always alert, keep your eyes open and camera ready at all times, ready to shoot. So film, if it is there loaded and everything, camera switched on if it is digital, pre-focused if you're shooting a manual camera, and autofocus if you're shooting a digital camera or a autofocus camera. And of course, using the right ISO helps. So if you're shooting street, if it's bright and sunny, digital cameras you can get by with any ISO. You can shoot from 100 to anything you want. Film users,
Yeah.
of course, are limited by the film that is in your camera. So you have to make do with what's there. So when you expose, you shoot for shadows, get more details in the shadows, and work with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll just scroll up a little and see if there are a few more questions here.
Sabir, you have your school friend in the chat. I mean, maybe you can say hi. Harish, I think, yeah.
Okay, hi. All right. Um, okay, shall we move on?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just moving to the next slide. So showing a little bit of industrial work which I've done, and it's of course a very interesting place to be. I love shooting industrial pictures, because that is very, very interesting for me. First, because I'm a mechanical engineer, that's one. Secondly, because I like these mm, factory environments, so to speak. So here are some images I have shot with in a factory environment. The first one was a foundry. So I call this compressed air. So he is holding a pipe of compressed air to clean the die and the mold, where he's kept cores over here in the cavity, and he's making sure that there's no dust particles and everything is clean before he closes the core and cavity. So that's a picture I shot from a gangplank on top. I wanted to make sure that I get the top. This is again shot on HP5, and this shot on the US-1V, because their light was very low, and I was trying to make sure that I don't miss any focus there. This was an interesting shot in the middle left, where you see this person uh, wheeling a wheelbarrow, the position of his legs and his eye movement. He just caught my eye. And though it is blurred because he's moving, and I still like this shot because I was able to get his eye focused on film. And secondly, I liked his posture, that he's pushing this cart and coming inside that room. So that made the picture for me. Few other pictures here in the fettling section of the foundry. You have a lot of parts, and this person or the resource is responsible for cleaning the foundry pieces. Um, so so I like the light that was coming in from the skylight. So the skylight was something like this over here, what you see, and he's over here in this location. So that's where he was. And this skylight gave a nice, soft, even light with some good shadows in the background. So that's what I liked about this picture. And here again, a person inspecting the finished castings over here. I wanted this to be an anonymous shot, so I waited for him to look down before I took a picture. Yeah, and this detail, this shot on digital, this is not on film, so this is on the 5D, and he's roughing up the casting face so that they can mount or place the gasket. So that's because after the machining is done, surface is very smooth. So he is actually physically using a crowbar and making um, marks over there. But interesting thing is, see the consistency of his work, and that's quite interesting there. Plus the light from the skylight falling on those freshly made marks. um, that was very interesting. So things like this actually look very interesting and kind of make the picture for me. Okay, so here's another mm, project that I like is tea and coffee houses. So I'm actually shooting this on a regular basis. I Wherever I go to tea or coffee houses, beware, you might find me somewhere in the corner taking your picture. So especially if you're in Bangalore. Okay. So for example, here's a moment I shot with friends sitting and having a great time. So they were blissfully unaware of me sitting next to them taking their pictures. Same way with this two gentlemen over here and the group having a very serious business meeting. Not to mention this friend of another friend who actually pinged later saying that I caught him at the wrong moment. So that's him drinking coffee in the India coffee house. Now this is interesting. I saw this in another coffee shop where it says no buy to service. So essentially that means all Indians know that we love this buy to business. We order one coffee and say make it buy two. So this was very categorically denying that service completely. So I made sure that I had two friends of mine sitting in front of me, but I also made sure that their heads were not fully visible. So no buy to service. That's the kind of message. I don't know. Maybe you'll catch this joke or not, but that's what it is. Okay, this is one of my earlier shots at Majestic, where this family was probably just out of a train or taking a break, and they were having coffee. This was at about 6:30 in the morning, and I'm sure they would have just got down from a train and wanted to have their early morning cup. Okay, so now the next one I'll come to is stage performances. PV, how are we doing on time?
We are good, Sabir. So we can have maybe 15-20 minutes, 15 more minutes,
Okay, I
15
think, yeah,
minutes, and then we'll have Q&A. Yeah.
perfect. Okay, so stage performances. Mm, most of these are shot with film, and these are some Kathakali recitals and Kathakali performances in various auditoriums in Bangalore. Some were show, the Kathakali artist applying makeup. Here you see them applying makeup, and also their performances. Of course, light being very low over there, you need to shoot and push the film. So here I wanted to show this as an example, and most of these examples are of film being pushed. So I've actually shot this. I rated the film at 1600, and this is a 400 film which I pushed to 1600. So, and then compensated that in development and in processing. So here you can see uh, tonality is still in control because of film and latitude of film. You still have great tonality. So the whites are still showing very good detail over here, and the blacks also have decent amount of detail. For example, here. So this ensemble, I basically did not want to, lift the shadows too much, but I wanted the light on their faces and them. And yeah, some are shot on US 1V, while some were shot on Leica. So Leica, of course, I had only a 50 lens. I didn't want to carry large lenses or large cameras, and Leica being silent allowed me to sit on the first row and take pictures from the first row itself. So that was quite a nice experience. Okay, so I'll move forward. Some of my fashion and glamour work, mainly model photography. So it's a mix of digital and film and various formats. So some are shot on a digital 5D, while some are shot on Hasselblad 120 film. Um, of course, some of you may be aware of the differences, but let me show you an example. So this is a 120 film roll, and this is a 35 film roll. So 35 film roll, of course, comes in cassettes like this, and modern film is coated, has a DX coding here. So this DX coding allows the camera to recognize which film and what ISO you're shooting, and it adjusts the ISO according to that, and automatically sets your meter exposure modes accordingly. So this is, of course, a Ilford HP5, and you see the difference between these two films. So 120, of course, is about 6 centimeters wide, and it's not 120 that a lot of people say. Actually, it's 120, which is a format number given by Kodak. Even 35 actually is a 135 format number. So that does not have any measurement on it. So this is essentially comes in the form of a roll. The film goes over here, and it's rolled up with a backing paper which is dark, and this gets loaded onto a camera like this. Okay, so this is a Hasselblad, and this essentially is a medium format camera. So this takes film rolls in the back over here. So this is the film cassette which holds the 120 film, and basically you can shoot uh, only 12 frames in a 6 by 6. Of course, the same roll can be used in different formats. So the same film roll can be used in different film formats like 6 by 4.5, 6 by 6, 6 by 7. This centimeters, of course. 6 by 7, 6 by 8, 6 by 9, 6 by 17. So 6 by 17, of course, is a panoramic camera. So you have panoramic images out of it. Most notable of those cameras is the Lenovo 617, which is a beautiful camera. And so the same role can be used in different types of film format cameras. So that's just as an introduction. So coming to um, film photography or model photography, most of these are friends or people who we know, and most of these are shoots which I also provide them the images. So it's uh, it's an interesting thing. Now, sometimes we use public places such as parks, or sometimes shoot in studios. For example, this picture and this picture, these two are shot in a studio, and live with proper lighting setup and exposures, and but of course it's shot on film. This is digital, whereas this is on film. This is also on the Hasselblad, but natural light, no additional lighting. These are shot with some reflectors and light modifiers. For example, this one is also shot with a reflector and a strobe. So this is a natural light shot on the bottom right of this young boy. Uh, I like the light falling on the face, and the smoothness of the light, because it was early morning and light was filtered through the trees. So it was very, very soft, the quality of light. Same way over here, this is also shot on the Hasselblad on 120 film. Fuji, this is shot on Fuji Acros 100, which is one of my favorite film. It's a wonderful film which is very, very fine grained and has beautiful tonality, lovely blacks. So if you want to print from an Acros in a traditional darkroom process, you get amazing images. Let me see if I have a picture to show you. For example, here's a picture of my cat, Smokey, and this is shot on Hasselblad, and I gave it a vintage look over here. So this is on a glossy paper, but then you also get paper which is matte, which is pearl finished. So there's no glossy on it, and depends on the type of application. You could use these different types of paper for different applications. Generally, for portraiture and magazine use, they prefer glossy images, whereas for exhibition and prints for family and even for personal collections, people prefer matte in finish. Okay. So any questions so far? Okay. Now let me come to fine art prints, fine art photography.
Hi, Shabir.
Hi. Hey, Harish. Hi. How are you?
Nice to see you. And I mean, you are a damn good photographer. Great.
Oh, thank you so much.
Shabir, I just wanted to check this in mid formats. Have they gone digital
Yes, medium format is available in digital as well.
on the Hasselblads and other ones?
Yes.
Or you
You
get
have Hasselblad backs, which are 100 megapixels, 50 megapixel backs are available. The H series of Hasselblad is a completely digital series. What I have is the V series, which is the old V series.
Correct.
But for V series, you get a back which is a digital back. So you can adapt a V series camera with a digital back. A CFV 50 is what is available from Hasselblad. It's of course a beautiful back. So, and you have phase one, company phase one, which is also has digital backs and camera bodies, which are medium format. The sensor size is 6 by 4.5, and it's a smaller sensor. But then yes, you can shoot digital on medium format.
But how easy it is to now still continue on your normal photo rolls and all that, or is it how to get it processed now? Because I don't see any in Dubai. At least I don't have any processor. I mean, normal roll processors. Everyone has gone digital. Looks like.
Yeah. But I do have some friends in Dubai who are shooting film.
Okay.
I will send a contact person link to you. Maybe you can get in touch with him, and he shoots film quite a lot. His name is Shaiju, and you could probably get in touch with him if you want any help in processing.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Okay. Great.
So Dubai, yes, there are a few labs that still do film processing,
Okay.
and equipment is also available.
Oh, equipment. Yes, there are a lot of things.
Yeah.
Great. And how about, I mean, your full format cameras you are not used in your normal shootouts?
Full format means?
I mean, after, I mean, mid format, which something which is higher than that.
Yeah. You see in the back behind me, there is a large format camera.
Yeah.
So that is a 4 by 5 a large format camera. I'll just bring it over. You can have a look.
I thought it was a mock model, basically.
Oh, that's a working camera.
Is it? Oh.
Okay, so this is a large format camera,
Hmm.
and this takes a film that is 4 by 5 in size, 4 inch by 5 inch,
Okay.
and the backs are here. So film is also available, and I shoot this extensively nowadays. I'm shooting a lot of large format work. Film is also available. You can get it printed as well
So
if you
this
wish.
film must be only the
Yeah,
tablet.
it's a sheet film.
Sheet film, yes.
Sheet film. So this is available.
Great, eh?
And you get a lot of second-hand large format cameras in the market.
Ah, okay.
I will cover that later. I have some slides on large format
Yeah, I
as
would
well.
love to see those slides of this last
Yeah,
film.
sure.
Great, great. Sabir, you can continue. Great. Nice to see you in action.
Yeah, thanks, Harish.
Right.
So what I'm showing you here is fine art work. It's a combination of 35 medium format pictures. Some are shot on Hasselblad, while some are shot on film, and some are shot on digital. So it's a combination of. I put this together to show that when you put fine art work together, it doesn't matter what medium you're using, what camera you're using, and what techniques you're using. It's ultimately your image that is important, and that's what counts. So this is a very early work of me, which I did with a friend called Shankar Subramaniam. He's this was on his kitchen table, vegetable two vegetable pieces from his kitchen, and we just set it on his table and used a single spot lamp, a reading lamp, which you use for in the olden days for reading. So we used that, just a single spot lamp, and used a reflector, and got this image. So uh, I used a wide angle here, 24 up close and personal with the gourd there. So I was the camera lens front element was barely 2 or 3 centimeters away from this tip of the gourd. So that was mm, basically we wanted to get a good dramatic shot there. Other pictures that you see over here, for example, this is in a kiln in Pottery Town, where the pots are made, and then uh, after they are fired, they are kept in a storage area. So I used a very shallow depth of field. I got these in focus, but I wanted these out of focus. So I used a shallow depth of field of f2 and shot this on film to get that effect I needed. So tonal range is also in good control here. You see on the left corner versus the top right corner, you see the entire range of tones, right from deep blacks to whites, which having also a sufficient amount of detail there. So this is of course a shot at at a place called Chunchi Falls on Kanakpura Road, just off Kanakpura Road. Same with this shot as well as this. So essentially, it's a very deep gorge, and the river was dried up at that time when we went. So we were able to go down and take pictures. But during monsoons, it's impossible and very dangerous, of course. So try to avoid it during that time. Here on the bottom right, you see steel tiffins, which are shot in Avenue Road. Now the place over there has a multitude of shops. That's one of our favorite places to go and shoot, because it's so interesting to shoot there. Everything is new at each time. So I used to go and shoot there, and this was a simple um, shot on film, of course, at that time. So these are essentially images. Yeah. Okay, I'll move on to the next one. So I'm almost coming to the end of the presentation. So what I'm covering now is large and ultra large format. So I've shot on 4x5, 8x10, and 10x12 film. So as you can see, I'll show you some examples. This is an example of a X-ray film, which is a mammographic X-ray film. This is 8x10 in size inches, and we shot this on. I shot this on a Vageshwari, which I borrowed from a friend who has a Vageshwari, and we are kind of doing a joint project on that Vageshwari to shoot large, ultra large format. So film, this is 8x10. I will show you a little bit more detail in this later. And this is X-ray film again. This is 10x12. Okay, and I will show you an example of a 4x5 film. So this is again a 4x5 film. You can see it's a sheet film, which is having a very thin image. So this I shot basically two seed pods against a black background on the 4x5. So now this is standard Fuji across film, and what I do is I cut the 8x10, which I showed earlier, into 4 sheets of 4x5, so that I can shoot on the X-ray film, which works out very economical, and you can do a lot of experimentation. So some images, I'll just introduce you to this for those who don't know. For those who are aware, hopefully you should find something interesting. So on the left, you see a 4x5 camera, which is what I showed you on the webcam. And on the right is a Vageshwari. This was built in India, in Kerala, in the early century, 1900s, right up to recent times, because the person who was building this actually recently he passed away, but his camera and his legacy still lives on. And most of these cameras are made out of wood, and they're very large, bulky, and very heavy to use. But and of course you get lenses which are very high focal length. So this is a 300 mm 330 mm lens, which is a normal lens for this format size, and it's adapted to a shutter. So the lens is separate, shutter separate. In the camera that you saw earlier, There also the lens is separate and the shutter is separate. It's actually mated together. So the large format and the ultra large format still has some fan following, primarily because of certain reasons. For example, you have the front standard, the rear standard, a bellows. Lens sits over here, and this is the lens plane, and this is the film plane. So very simple, but huge amounts of flexibility in the camera, because you can use a tilt motion, you can use rise and fall, you can use shifting, and you can use a swing. So a combination of one of this or all of these can make you pictures which are almost impossible with modern digital SLRs or any smaller format cameras, because you can correct verticals, and you can correct perspective distortion, you can correct a whole lot of things by using this. You can deliberately make certain things, or the background go out of focus, for example, or you can make the foreground extremely sharp with the composition that you want. So it's useful in tabletop photography, food photography, still life, and many other areas. Of course, you can't shoot a cricket match with this, but then each thing has its own use. Okay, so these are images from the 4x5 cameras. The picture that I shot is essentially this is a street photograph, a portraiture, two portraitures you see over here. Picture which I showed you earlier on the X-ray film. So this is the shot on the X-ray film. So surprisingly, one thing about the X-ray film is that it has very high contrast naturally, because you want to see bone and you want to see the defects in the bone when you do the X-ray. So the emulsion is designed, and the chemistry is also designed to give you very, very high contrast images. So we need to tone down the high contrast images and make softer images. So that's what is my experimentation that I am doing now, is to experiment with different developers and different types of exposures, timings for developers, so that I can get more tonal range in an X-ray film. The reason why we're doing this is because X-ray film even now is still available so far. So we can actually shoot on X-ray film, and it works out very economical. Same film, if I order from any of these suppliers, the cost is prohibitive. So it's easy to use X-ray film, but it has its own learning curve, a very steep learning curve at that. But it's interesting. It's quite challenging. Another thing about X-ray, like this shot is on Fuji across. Sorry, this is on Ilford Delta 100, and I use some tiny movements to make sure I get the verticals lined up parallel to the vertical plane, and some geometric adjustments can be done to get the picture you want. Here I deliberately used a 90 mm lens, which is equivalent to let's say a 28 mm in 35 mm terms. So you can get a dramatic picture, but when you see the trees over here, you get a very decent tonal range yet. And this is also on X-ray film. This is not on normal film. So if you compare the picture on the right to the picture on the left, these two images, they are actually shot on completely different films. So the look that you get out of those films is completely different. Here you have slightly higher contrast images. Here you have better tonality, of course. Yeah, lighting setup is of course very simple. Just a single light with a reflector on the darker side to fill in some of the shadows, and and the model is of course at a slight angle so that I get more light in an even fashion on her. This picture on the bottom left is from a door, just single door as natural light source, and one um, uh, reflector over here to fill in the shadows. Now, these are two film images which I'm showing you here. That's a 8x10 mammographic X-ray film on the left-hand side. This is shot with a very long exposure on the Vageshwari. So the Vageshwari has a holder which takes 10 inch by 12 inch normally. So then I created a mask to make sure that I can uh, place a 8x10 X-ray in film in that, so that it can be held there. And this one you see on the right side is uh, the X-ray film shot on the 10 by 12 directly on a 10 by 12 film. So typically X-ray film is orthochromatic. So generally it does not record blues. So blues essentially turn white, and reds get concentrated. So actually this particular mesh cage is in red color. So when I shot this, you can see that the bird over here, metal bird, is quite dark. So same goes with humans. If you use a X-ray film on light skin tones, you may get a decent image. But if you use it on slightly darker skin tones, especially Indian skin tones, then you may get a dark image. So you have to use corrective filters to take care of that. So what I'll do now is I'll just show you the X-ray film image on. Let me just turn the camera over here and show you the image over here on a light table. So that's the image that you see on the thing. I'll go closer so you can have a look at this. The image appears completely, flat, but it's got decent amount of tones and good contrast as well. So there you go. I hope you can see it clearly.
Yes, to some level, yeah. Not so clearly, but it's fine, Sabir.
Okay, fine. All right. Okay, so I also thought I'll show you some prints. I recently, about few years back, did work for Tasveer, the art gallery, and printed close to 700 images for them out of 50 negatives. So, when you see an image like this, which is printed using a traditional enlarger, is when you understand how beautiful these images turn out to be, or the prints turn out to be. Of course, you can also, do a print of this by scanning and doing a digital print. But then the impact of uh, a darkroom print is something very extraordinary. Okay, so I'm kind of nearing the end of my session. If anybody has any question, I purposely kept it short so that we have some time for questions. Okay.
Wonderful, wonderful, Sabir. I mean, generally, when we have any session, we'll say 45 minutes, 50 minutes. You're the only one who had on 25, 30 slides, right? And you put together those images. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted
so-
it to be crisp because since
Yes.
this is not such a detailed session,
Yes.
I thought it would be a bit more crisp, and should give opportunity for people to ask questions if they have.
Yes. So if you may have any question, you can type your questions here on the chat window, or you can also unmute yourself and ask your questions. Over to the audience. Yeah, there are comments coming in. Prasoon just mentioning about very nice session. Mayura's talking about it. Okay, Pradeep, yeah, go ahead. Okay, so to Pradeep, we are going to be telling this. I mean, I don't know whether Sabir is going to answer that. I'll answer. We are planning for a future kind of meetup just after the COVID is over. Maybe Sabir, you can close. Yeah. So that's easy. Now you can, we can speak each other, look at each other.
Sure.
So
yeah, actually, I was looking forward to this type of thing. Means I have some experience in developing film, black and white rolls, but I don't have any idea about printing it with using an enlarger. I never had a darkroom setup. So is there any way sometime in future where you can show us how it is done?
Yeah, actually, PV and I were discussing this a couple of days back, that we can actually do a live session of printing a roll and developing it. First, shooting a roll. Of course, we'll take a pre-shot roll and show how to develop the film using chemicals, and then take that, choose a couple of frames from that, and do a print. So that session could be maybe half a day session just for an introduction. Generally, when I teach in colleges and institutions, I normally use about 2 days a weekend complete to teach the theory and do a shoot, take the role, develop it. The students themselves get hand-on experience in developing their own role, and then after the role is done, choose the best images from that and do their own prints. So that's typically the workflow, but we can shorten it, as since we are using an online system, there is no interactivity there. So maybe I can do a session there. I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Sabir, looks like you have more friends from your school days joined in for the session today.
Okay.
Let's see the comments.
Yeah, I'm one of them. Nice to see you here in action. I really loved it. In fact, I would love to be part of all your sessions in future too.
Of course. Yeah,
So
I'll be happy
keep
to
me in your
invite.
mailing list, and I'm in office today right now, so I was not able to fully concentrate because my office was still on.
Okay.
It's 6 o'clock here in Dubai, but still, if it is Friday, Saturday, I mean, I would be able to really concentrate more and learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and nice to see you. You have become a pro now in this. So
Well, not really a pro, but it's quite involving and deep for me. I enjoy the whole process. I shoot digital as well. I like shooting digital, but mostly I'm trying to shoot color on digital as much as I can, and shoot black and white on film, because there's a workflow which is in control. So right from the time that I shoot till the time I get my print, the entire workflow is now streamlined, and there is a variation which you can do in the workflow to improve or change the type of effect you want.
in fact, I'll have to now take out my roll camera because I had just discarded it after the DSLRs came in, so I had just left it aside. Maybe I'll have to start that again.
Just please message me your mobile number. So I'll add your mobile number and I'll ask Shaiju to get in touch with you if possible,
Oh
or
yeah.
you can get in touch with him.
Okay. In fact, I have taken down your mobile number from the slide itself. I'll
Perfect.
send you
So
one.
just message me. Yeah.
Right. Great.
Yeah, I think there's a question from
Surya.
Surya. Yeah.
No. Satya.
Satya. Yeah. So his question is, how do you decide when to shoot on film and digital? So I think it is purely a matter of choice, not dictated by any particular rule as such, but you know, it's your own personal preference. But yes, color shooting color on film is getting a little difficult these days, because one is color film is not available so uh, in plentiful. Secondly, the stock may not be fresh, because color shifts happen if the stock is not being stored properly. So that's one problem in color film. And then of course getting it printed or scanned and developed. So very few labs are doing color film these days. Black and white is easy to do, because chemistry is known, and the process is quite simple to do. Anybody can develop film in their own homes. The chemistry is not toxic. It is very simple and quite user friendly. It does not cause any problems, so you can actually do it in your kitchen sink if you want, or in your bathroom. To develop, all you need is a few chemicals and a developing tank, uh, some containers, and you're all good to go.
I think the way you put together, Sabir, the art and technology, you started with kind of talking about the art side of it, and then slowly moved on to technology, and you took all the audience who were watching this session, slowly moved into your dark room. Very interesting, I would say, very informative. Certainly, a lot of very old things, though they are new for many of us, like talking about the Vageshwari, or some people must have thought even Vageshwari is somebody, right? Now, some person, right? So our own Karnakaran's camera coming out of it. So very interesting session today. Happy to have you. So if you have any last question, maybe one last question, and then we'll have a closing note. Is there any question?
Sabir, someone
Yeah.
the other day said, so as soon as Sabir steps out, he has a pair of glasses. He wears that and the whole world turns black and white. Is that true?
No, not really. It's I still see in color.
Okay, thank God. Hey, see you soon, Sabir.
Yeah, good to talk to you,
Good,
Ram.
man. Yeah, man. Beautiful.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thanks, Ram, for that note. It's a very interesting note. Harish is again asking your class friend, when are we meeting again? When are we meeting again? So when we have the next session, we keep doing a lot more session coming up. Even Sabir is trying to, we are working on a workshop kind of a thing, specifically for film developing and printing and things like that. So we'll try explore that segment. So Sabir, you have any final note? Then we'll, okay, so there's more question. Okay.
I think, yeah.
Stuart's question, yeah. So what are the thoughts on shooting black and white on a digital camera?
Yeah, actually, it's a great idea, and everybody loves it. I shoot digital also, and I shoot digital digital, and then convert to black and white. So, of course, one needs to be familiar with the process of converting the color image to black and white, and also visualizing how a color image or a particular color would look in black and white. Because one great thing about digital is that you have these three channels which you can play with in any way you want, RGB. So when you're shooting a digital image, you can convert that to a black and white, and there are at least 7 to 8 methods, different methods of converting a color image to black and white, and each one has its own pros and cons. Most of them give you a very good image, and then you also get additional tools to further enhance your color image, or the resulting black and white image, into something more dramatic, or you can give special effects to it. You can add film grain. You can make so many changes. So these tools are available as plugin in either Photoshop or Lightroom. You get ready-made filters which you can apply, and those filters can be customized. So you can actually customize those filters to get the effect you want. So yes, a lot of people now shoot digital, and a lot of street photographers shoot digital, and process it as black and white image. And of course, not just street photographers, but everybody. Um, right from fine art photographers to um, uh, portraiture and fashion and glamour. Black and white has its own charm, and it's never gone out of style. It's never out of fashion. Photographers shoot digital, and
In fact, it is always fun when you're shooting raw on digital and then shoot see in black and white, but you still have the color file with you. Don't have to process it later stage. You still have a JPG, which is a black and white JPG, and the raw still remains as raw. Sometimes we
right.
do this when you're in the street. Very
Yeah.
interesting for this note. Yeah. Super. So any final note, Sabir, if you have to, we are almost at the end of the session.
Yeah. I think
so. Maybe I'll leave it to you to have a closing note, and then we'll call it a day.
Okay. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining, and thank you for your comments and your feedback on this session. I really appreciate it. I was happy to see some of my old schoolmates and my classmates who are still here online. So that's really uplifting for me. So yeah, thank you for coming, and thank you for coming over.
Wonderful. So what we are doing is we'll call this the day. So like I mentioned earlier, Thalam will continue to do a lot more events. We are in talks with more presenters, more photographers, more entrepreneurs, artists. So we are planning for one book launch coming up next, which is on 25th. He's a scientist. I won't call this a scientist. He's a dentist. But who turned out to understand a lot more about Adivasis in Nilgiris, and he's publishing a book on some of these medicinal plants. That's next event. If you guys are interested to learn more about the traditional plants, you may join that event. You can check Thalam page, thalam.in, facebook.com/thalam.in, or Thalam's Instagram, or you can also follow Thalam TV. Even today we had a live session on YouTube. You can check Thalam TV on YouTube. Check, there are more sessions coming up. Thanks everyone for joining in today, and thank you, Sabir, for accepting. I've been like pushing you to get
No.
to
It
the
was a
session.
pleasure, and I've actually been trying to put it off for quite some time, but I thought it would be a great session for me.
Wonderful.
And
No, it was interesting.
I enjoyed it myself.
Yeah, it was interesting to kind of bring in this art and technology and the old school and the new school in terms of not just thinking process, but also in terms of the whole process of printing and developing and then all this, right? So it's very interesting to have you on Thalam Talks today. And I'm sure we had a lot of students also on board, and then they given some kind of a feed which motivates them to go and Google and then learn, right, more about it, and then it can take them to the next level. So thanks again for all participants to be with us today. Thank you, Sabir. So I would say good night. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye everybody.
Sabir,
Bye.
don't go. Stay back.
Okay.
I'm just stopping the recording and also